It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Albion's head volleyball coach, Coach Kristin Slammer de Albion. How are you doing today?
Great, how are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching as a head volleyball coach?
I think, I'd gotten my start in education. And so that was really where, my passion for a lot of, physical education. And I was a player too. And so a lot of my early mentors were coaches. And so, I really wanted to start a college coaching career, after I student taught and was able to start that at Northern Michigan University and really found that was really where I wanted my career path to go, was to be in collegiate volleyball.
What was that experience as a collegiate athlete coming to Albion and getting to play collegiate volleyball?
Yeah, I think female sports at that time are a little bit different than they are now. I was recruited to play volleyball, and it was a great experience. But I think where female athletics is now, it's much more visible. I definitely have appreciated my experience as a coach almost more than a player, just because of the visibility of female athletics. And so I think that's been a great benefit, to where female sports are now.
What was that experience like for you, getting to put on that uniform for them and representing the school?
It's pretty special. Albion's a great institution, one of the best liberal arts colleges in Michigan. And so it's great to represent that and, be able to compete.
During your college times, what were some of your biggest accomplishments as a player?
I don't really, I try to be humble with some of those things. We set some school records. We were able to, be relatively successful. I definitely think my time as a coach has been a little bit more successful as my time as a player. So, I hold some conference records still in the 30-point era. That's great. Had some all-league recognition. Yeah.
After your collegiate time, what was it like getting into coaching and first going to Northern Michigan?
I was very young at that time. So I was 22, moved into the GLIAC in Division II, which is pretty high-level volleyball. And so learned a lot, but was really fortunate to be, I think female collegiate volleyball coaches weren't as well known at that time. So, that was 2007, 2008-ish, so it was great to kind of be, in that setting as a young female coach.
While at Northern Michigan, what were some of the things that you learned as an assistant coach to help you along your journey?
I learned a lot. It was also a time where, we were still like FedExing like DVDs and film, and, so it's very different, but I learned a lot about just logistics, right? How to run a college volleyball program, expectations when you're getting ready for opponents. Learned a lot about recruiting, and a lot about training athletes. We really have to still develop athletes at our level. And even in Division II, you might get lucky with a 4-year All-American, but you got to develop kids. And so I learned a lot about development as well.
What was that experience like, getting that experience on the high school level of coaching?
Yeah, high school is very different. I think that's very development based, right? You're working with kids that are 13 versus 18, at different times. So a lot of that was about mentorship, being supportive for them, but then also trying to put high expectations on them as well. I was a teacher at that time. So, visibility and running a program, was really important at that school and in that district. And it definitely is a full year-round commitment to try to grow things like that.
What was that transition like, coming back to the collegiate level and getting an opportunity at your alma mater?
Yeah, not teaching in a public school, it was a very different lifestyle. I love working on a college campus. I think you have a lot more flexibility. And so that was always great. Getting back into, more of a recruiting base, like recruiting is a huge part of this job. And so that was a huge adjustment. But then, just working with, student athletes who are high academic, who want to, be here and compete at a high level, it just kind of amps the level of practice up. They're here for a reason. And so it just kind of changes your mindset with, how you're able to develop and train them.
How was that feeling like for you, getting that phone call to come back home to your alma mater to become the next head coach?
Yeah, I definitely remember, I was in my kitchen, took the phone call. And so I knew it was going to be a big life move. And so I remember, taking the phone call from our AD at the time, telling him I needed a day to think about it, and then calling him back like 10 minutes later and taking the job, just because it is such a big life move. And at that time, I was engaged to be married at that time, so there were a lot of big life changes going on for me. But it was really special because I remember taking the position at Northern and knowing this is, what I wanted to do. I wanted to come back and be the head coach at Albion. And so it was a pretty cool thing to be able to make that happen.
Of course, when you got back home to your alma mater and stepped onto the court, what was that feeling like as a new head coach?
Yeah, I mean, we started in March, I took over in March, and so I got to run that spring season, and so it definitely didn't feel as like high stakes, right? We're in our non-traditional season, we're training, I'm getting to know a group of athletes I didn't recruit, and so I knew we had a long road. I could, paint a picture of rainbows and butterflies. But I knew with what we had at that time, it was going to be a long road for us, with recruiting and kind of changing the culture. So I think there was a lot of excitement, but also a lot of like looking ahead of like, how are we going to make the changes we need to make to be successful?
How was that feeling like for you getting to step onto that court for the first time after obviously your playing career ending?
Yeah, it definitely was different. Having a spring and then going into our first fall, was definitely an exciting time. But we struggled in some personnel places at that time. I didn't bring in a recruiting class until that following year because I was hired in March. And so I think it was a little stressful. It was great to, be a part of it, but I knew we were a couple of years away from doing big things. So.
What was that feeling like on their first game day, getting to step onto that court for the first time on game day?
Game day is always great. I think we're on the road a lot, especially in like early August. So it's exciting when, you get to see all the work that you've kind of put in. So that's always a great feeling.
What was that feeling like the first time you got to step onto that court out on your home game day?
We always kind of talk about Kresge magic. So, our gym environment and our student fan base has always been great. And so it's great to see that, especially there's a lot of excitement for fall sports and just in the fall, there's a lot of excitement around things that are going on campus. So it's just an exciting time to be able to represent, everything that we've been doing.
As an alma mater and a head coach, what was that feeling like getting that first win for you?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember. We struggled in the win-loss category, my first couple of years, just kind of growing the program. It was like kind of took us 2 recruiting classes. I remember kind of a sigh of relief for sure because we knew we were capable of that, but I knew it was going to be big things to come for sure.
What was that like getting to build your coaching staff around you and the players around you?
Yeah, I think it's been really cool to reflect on that now. Feeling like I'm a veteran coach, I guess, in my 13th year, but feeling like we could reflect back and go, this was our first step. This was kind of like our first group did this, then our next group was able to accomplish this, then this group did this, so it definitely has felt like a, kind of different eras of how we've been able to grow and become a nationally ranked program, become a regionally ranked program. Those things have taken a lot of time, but, we've been able to build great staffs, have great recruiting classes every year. But that takes time. But it's cool to kind of see how that all comes together, throughout the course of 13 years and how each group has shaped and changed the next group ahead of that. So what those seniors leave, what legacies they leave and traditions, it's great to see how that's changed and evolved over the years.
How does it feel like for you to be the winningest coach in program history at Albion?
Again, I feel like I don't really talk about that a ton. There was a lot of coaching turnover in the course of, Albion volleyball, and people were here for 3 and 4 years. And so it is an awesome accomplishment, and I think it takes a lot of work to change the history of a program who had, historically been around 500 or losing records a lot. And so that takes a lot of work to change a reputation and a culture. And so I think I'm more proud of that versus, having the most wins. Cause I think if you're doing the things the right way, those things are going to come. But I think we've, started to leave, a tradition for Albion volleyball, which has been a priority of mine for a long time.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built for the program?
Yeah. I mean, we're all about positive peer culture and high expectations. So things for us, where we're talking about doing things the right way, high competition all the time. We want to go play the best teams in the country all the time and, focusing on process and goals. So, I mean, I think we've established a culture of success and winning. And so really trying to maintain that every year.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
Our league's really competitive. So, historically, we've had teams win national championships out of our conference. And so we don't get any breaks with the league. But our conference is, all Michigan schools, 2 Indiana schools. So Calvin, Hope, Kalamazoo, Olivet, Alma, Trine, Adrian, St. Mary's. I think that was everyone. Yeah.
What does that home game atmosphere feel like when teams like Adrian comes to home versus going to Adrian?
Yeah. I mean, anything in conference is pretty high rivalry stakes. So, we also are at a point where, we're going to get everybody's best game. And so we have great fan support. It's pretty, it can be pretty electric in our gym, and we have a great fan base.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play collegiate volleyball?
Yeah, we really start our recruiting process in their, outside of high school season and clubs and during their club season. So a lot of our recruiting process starts in June, January of their junior year, sometimes, early fall of their junior year as well. And so we're really kind of building those connections, identifying who our top prospects are, and trying to get them on campus before they start their senior year.
What does that official visit look like for those prospective student athletes when they get to see the facility and the campus?
Yeah, most of our visits are, we have a great admissions department, so we're able to offer great tours, meals with our players, meeting with our staff, see our locker room, see our facility. I think we definitely want them to get a feeling of what it's like to be a student at Albion, and then what it is to be a student athlete.
As a head coach in alma mater, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that Albion jersey for the first time?
I think it's pretty cool. We, start that recruiting process with them sometimes as they're sophomores, sometimes when they're juniors, so seeing them kind of like, we know them for a while before they get to, put a jersey on. So hopefully they're living up to that expectation. They're, able to have a sense of pride in what they're wearing and how they're competing.
What is that like getting to see those seniors putting on that jersey for the last time in their first professional jersey?
Yeah, I think senior night's always a pretty cool thing, just to see their growth over the last 4 years, sometimes 5, right? I think we've had our run of, the COVID 5th year players, too, but I think we're trying to build great women. We want to have great alumni support. And so we want them all to have a great experience.
How's that like getting to see them achieve those big milestones in their career, like first digs versus their 1,000 digs and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I think, when we're talking about developing players, I always want to be, not just stat milestones, but, the players that achieve those milestones are great, but, also how is our, the third person in that position, what things can we celebrate for them? We definitely always want to celebrate success. So those are things we try to celebrate, from, the person who's an All-American to the, person who might be at the bottom of the depth chart in that position.
What is it like as a head coach getting to see them put on their first professional volleyball jersey?
We don't do that as much at our level. I think it's really great that there are so many professional leagues that are in the U.S. now. So it's nice to be able to see that too.
What are some of the things that you've been able to accomplish so far as head coach?
Well, I think my biggest accomplishment is trying to create, a great culture success at Albion. I think rebuilding a program is difficult, and I feel like we've been able to turn that from a rebuild to just a reload every year. And so I would say, creating that standard for volleyball on Albion's campus, I think, is a huge accomplishment.
What are some of your favorite memories of coaching so far?
The big wins are always the ones I remember the most. Seeing student athletes, walk at graduation. I think, bringing people here, who have great experiences. I think those are always my favorite memories too.
What would you tell your younger self now, looking back on your career of being a head coach at your alma mater?
I would tell my younger self to be patient with, the wins are going to come, stay the course, essentially too. And so, yeah, I think I definitely remind myself of that.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college volleyball?
It's a marathon, right? I think they don't always understand the kind of the expectations with school and volleyball and travel and everything else that we do. And so I try to give them that advice of like, take time for yourself, make sure you're, staying on top of school and be in it, for the long haul.
What are some of your future plans for the program moving forward?
Futuristically, we're always looking to, play great competition, play great schedule. So those are always things we look to do. We are planning a trip to Virginia Beach this year to go down and play regionally ranked teams in Virginia. So we're going to be doing that. And we're always looking to increase our donor base so that we're able to do international trips and things like that. Post COVID, we're looking forward to kind of planning some more experience-based things for our players.
What advice would you give those juniors transitioning from being juniors to seniors and leading the program?
Yeah, we talk about leadership as kind of a responsibility of everyone. So, I talk to all of our returning players about, they're responsible for what the culture looks like, how they want that to grow. And so we, try to give them a lot of ownership of that.
What advice would you give those seniors looking to play professional volleyball after their playing career?
Again, we're not doing as much of that in Division III, but I think if they're, wanting to pursue some of those opportunities, especially internationally, we definitely want to prepare them as much as possible.
What advice would you give those players looking to get into coaching after their playing career?
Utilize their resources. I think there's a lot of GA opportunities that really provide people with great experiences. I think using, our staff as a resource is always great, but also to, maximize their opportunities for professional development with the convention and mentorship programs. Those are great things that I wish I would have had as a young coach as well.
What advice would you give those assistant volleyball coaches out there looking to get started in coaching and as a head coach on the college level?
Yeah, I think have as many conversations with head coaches as possible, how they make their moves. I think, networking is a great thing. If you're able to network and connect with people, you learn a lot. You also grow your circle. So I think those things are just as important as the X's and O's, quote unquote, of sports is, you have a knowledge of the game, but also to.
What advice would you give those coaches looking to coach at their alma mater?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure with that, right? You want to see the place that you have put a lot of time in be successful. So understand that pressure, but also, take pride in what you're developing.
What advice would you give those future head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
It takes time, and I think you have to surround yourself with great people. I think those are the things. It's you got to build a great staff. Build a great staff, bring in great people, bring in people that know how to win. And those things start to come, and you have to build tradition.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the program?
Yeah, our social media handles are all Albion Volleyball or Albion V-Ball, I think. But Instagram, Facebook, X, not Twitter now, X, and then we have a TikTok as well.
Thank you again, Coach Kristin Slammer, for your interview, and best luck in your future at Albion as the head volleyball coach.
Thank you for your time.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram and Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach, for your interview. Best luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.